Good. Inshallah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salamu ala Sayyidil Anbiya'i wal Mursaleen wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. So we're still on Surah Fatiha. And in the second part of Surah Fatiha, the word, or not the word part per se, but a derivative of that word is used, and essence of it is one concept. In other words, the verb that's used in the beginning of the next ayah, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. Na'budu is what? Anyone? Worship? That's good. Any other guesses? Slave. It's another interesting. Abd is slave. Okay. We're getting there, but you have a general concept, right? So na'budu is a verbal form, and it has a root word, and this is what I wanted to focus on. So worship is one way. Again, like, mashallah, we heard that answer already. Worship, and also servitude, slavery. If a person's a slave, then slavery would be its derivative, or the derivative of slave is slavery, rather. So the word in Arabiya, as we know, or we probably heard before, is al-ibadah, correct? Al-ibadah. Al-ibadah really means tadhallul. Tadhallul is also a word in Arabic, obviously. There are words in Urdu that derive from it as well. You know zalil? Right, inferior. That's how it's used. It's from the word in Arabic is dhalil, right? So you just pronounce the dha like a za, and you have zalil, right? Or zillat, from dhilla in Arabiya. So tadhallul is a deliberate effort to become zalil. If you will, you can even say to humble oneself would be a very nice way of putting it. You could even say to lower yourself. Okay, that would be a nicer way of putting it. Okay, instead of debasing yourself. You got it? So in English, if I say to debase yourself, which could be a possible translation of tadhallul, but that's kind of, it sounds very demeaning, correct? And Allah's intention is not to demean His servants, but rather it is to lift them up and raise them up. So we don't say to debase yourself. Although, obviously, this is the whole point of the whole discussion of Surah Fatiha. If there is any being, if there is anyone, if you want to put it that way, that would deserve that we debase ourselves in front of them, it would be Allah. Does it make sense? So, ibadah literally is to debase oneself, but we're going to say here to humble oneself, or to lower oneself, okay, and become a servant. Maybe better sometimes to say servant as opposed to slave, because of the context that we are in. That if you say slave, and then people immediately think about slavery, and it's again historical context. In the United States of America, or in America, the Americas in general, then people automatically have this image, right? Well, I don't want to be anyone's slave, not even God's slave. So, okay, servitude. But it all goes back to this one concept, which is that a deliberate effort, tadhallu, is a deliberate effort to debase oneself or lower oneself. So, some of the ulama say that in essence, everyone is a slave of something. Okay? In essence, everyone, in other words, will humble themselves, lower themselves, or even debase themselves for something or someone. And that's why a servant of something, an abd, is a servant of either Allah or something or someone other than Allah. You take your pick. It's either one of the two. So either a person is debasing themselves or lowering themselves for the sake of something or someone other than Allah, or they are debasing themselves and lowering themselves for Allah alone. Hence, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ. Okay, so the word إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ, or rather the sentence, because this is actually would be a complete sentence. But of course this sentence has another part, which is وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. But إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ in itself is a full meaning. You alone do we serve. You alone do we debase ourselves and humble ourselves and submit ourselves. All of that could be implied by إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ. Now, that means, understanding what I've just said, that we choose to be the Abd of Allah because He is the only being who is worthy of that tadallum. It's the only being that we should demean ourselves or lower ourselves to. So hence we say al-ubudiyya, to become a servant or to demean oneself in front of something else. And it belongs only to who? Allah Azza wa Jal. Now if you want to take it to a much deeper level, which we should, what does it mean that if we are demeaning ourselves or lowering ourselves either to Allah or anything or anyone other than Allah? Because you may say to yourself, well, I don't deliberately put myself in a position to become, right, zalil in front of other people, right? But that's not the only way to understand it. So any form that you demean yourself, and in other words, if you don't want to do something, if you really feel that something is beneath you, but you do it anyhow, in order to even fulfill your own purpose. Am I making sense to you? Like I have a desire, for instance, right? I have a shahwa, which we all do. Human beings, by nature, we have desires, okay? To fulfill that desire, I will do things that really intuitively would be demeaning. So at that point, who are you a slave of? Your desires. Okay? Because I want to fulfill this desire, so it doesn't matter at this point in time. It is a matter of just fulfillment and not a matter of whether I will actually do something that is demeaning to me or even to other human beings for that matter. But even in this case, we're saying primarily to oneself. Okay? That it won't really matter to a person who becomes a slave to their desires. Or even you could do it outside of yourself to other human beings. So you expect or you think that other people are your benefactors, which is why also it's important to understand the words that Allah uses in this surah to take this false belief out of our minds. This false, I don't even want to say belief, it's a hukam. Hukam means, again, you are presented with a fact or you're presented with some information and you therefore make a hukum after that information is presented before you. So what I'm trying to say with that is that if you look around you in the world around you and you see the world as independent agents acting by themselves without Allah, that He is not the Rabb. Because the word Rabb, if you go back to everything we discussed, means that He had created everything and He also sustains everything. And that also denotes that every single thing that occurs in the universe, they do not occur or come about, what's called hawadith in the terminology of the muhaddith, or the mutakallimun and theologians, except by Allah being its creator and sustainer at every moment. And even if you could measure time in less than a moment, we would also say even the split second, whatever way you want to determine time, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the sole sustainer and creator of everything that happens. When you understand that from one statement, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, and automatically the conclusion, the hukum should be what? Anything other than Allah really are what? Unable to be my benefactor, are unable to truly cause me any benefit or harm. So if that is the case, if they are equivalent to me in the fact that they are created and they are in absolute need of their creator, so why would I debase myself or lower myself in front of any human being as well? Make sense so far? Right? Once you understand Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, then automatically it should lead to إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ.
Imam, the term debase, though, there to me doesn't seem to be any act of worship that we involve ourselves with where you would use the word. I mean, we're not debasing when we're doing salat, fasting. I mean, that implies a negative connotation.
Yeah, that's why I even though that's what it could be translated as, but perhaps, as I said before, that to say to lower oneself and to submit oneself is a better way of translating it if you don't want to sound if you don't want to have a negative connotation. But the reality is you are debasing yourself to a degree because it's something that you're doing. It may not be something that you are intuitively or naturally inclined to do, which is important because ibadah is not something that we say that mankind or human beings are we're not inclined to do it. We are mukallaf. Mukallaf means that we are given what? The responsibility to do it. There's a difference, okay? If it was just a matter of natural inclination and we just did it easily, like the malaika, then there's no question of reward and punishment. True or not? There's no question then. What's the point? There's no reward and punishment for them because they are naturally inclined, right? وَيَفْعَلُونَ مَا يُؤْمَرُونَ. They just simply do everything that they're commanded. So the reason why we're saying debasement or humility is because actually we are mukallaf. That's the term used. لَا يُكَلِّفُ اللَّهُ نَفْسًا إِلَّا وُسْعَهَا. So we are morally obliged. And that in and of itself implies that we don't do these things intuitively or even that we because we want to. We do these things, right, initially. That's another point. Initially means in the beginning, every human being will find it difficult. This is a deliberate, that's why the word is used for translation of ibadah in Arabic is tadhallu. Tafa'al means that a person makes a deliberate, concerted effort to do something. The form of the verb itself means a person makes a deliberate and concerted effort to do something. You got it? So it implies, again, that in the beginning, a person is not naturally acclimated or used to or even wants to become a slave. Who wants to become dhalil or zalil? Anyone? Nobody. Everyone, and this is why most people reject Allah, because the idea that they have to belittle themselves in front of anything or anyone, and even God, is what? The nafs doesn't want to accept. The nafs, as some ulama say, is like Fir'aun in many ways. The nafs inwardly says what the same thing Fir'aun said, and he used the word Rabb too, right? He said what? Ana rabbukumul a'la. I am your highest Lord, Rabb, because Rabb means Malik, it means the king, the owner, the sole controller of all things. So some ulama say that is something that every human soul basically says deep down inside. Then I'm your Lord Most High, don't debase me or don't put me down or don't humiliate me in front of anyone.
Shaitan.
And just, well, especially shaitan, that's the pinnacle, right? But the unfortunate thing is that human beings, we can become worse than shaitan. And I'll explain what I mean. All right? If you look, first of all, everyone here knows Surah Fatiha, right? لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ ثُمَّ رَدَدْنَاهُ أَسْفَلَ سَافِلِينَ. So then Allah said He created man in the best of forms, but also at the same time He debased him. رَدَدْنَاهُ أَسْفَلَ سَافِلِينَ, to be the lowest of the low. So we're not saying this is figurative. We're saying that quite literally human beings can get so low that no other creation, including Iblis, can get that low. How so? Because look, Iblis, 2 times in the Quran, he said something twice. Once he said it in the battle of Badr, and the second time in Surah Al-Hashr, he will say it on the day of Qiyamah. What did Shaitan say? What did Iblis say? Inni akhaf Allah. Indeed, I fear Allah. Iblis is evil because he is under complete control of his jealousy and anger, to the point where he doesn't want to even control it. It has consumed him. You understand? That jealousy and anger has consumed his very being. So that becomes his very reason of living and his purpose of living, that jealousy and that anger. But does he still acquiesce that he has a Rabb? Yeah. What does he say? Inni akhafullah. In one ayah, he does say, Inni akhafullah Rabb al-alameen. So he does acquiesce that I have a Lord, I have a sustainer, I'm not that foolish. Who is the only creation in all of the universe who said, Ana rabbukum al-ala? Fir'aun, who's a human being. Dajjal, when he will appear in the last days, he will claim divinity, right? Even before him, there's plenty of people that say that they're divine. There's people here in the United States of America, they had a famous preacher, his name was Father Divine, because he said he was God. There are actually even branches of the infamous Nation of Islam in North America, they're called 5%ers, and they literally say that they're gods. They actually say, no, they're not taking that figuratively, they say, we are gods. Huh? So human beings are the only creation in the universe that have the audacity to say what? I'm God. Iblis knows better. As bad as he is, he knows better. He's not going to say he's God. He knows Allah, who Allah is. So only humans can be that degraded to the point where they are so full of themselves that they actually claim that I'm God. Okay? Even Nimrud, he started all this nonsense too when Ibrahim alayhi salam came to him and said what? What did he say to him? Rabbi alladhi yuhyi wa yumeet. My Rabb, same word, and this is good because this is part of what I wanted to discuss today, even this concept of Rabb and Rububiyyah and Ubudiyah. So the word Rabb is used. My Rabb is the one who does what? Yuhyi wa yumeet. He gives life and he gives death. What was Nimrod's response? Ana uhyi wa umeet. I give life and I give death. Right? So the delusion of man is what? That I have ultimate power. I don't need to be the abd of anyone. Got it? This is the delusion of mankind. And that's why we are mukallaf. Initially, we have to break that part of our nafs and we have to say what? No, I am the abd of Allah in reality. But also, when a person initially starts that path of ubudiyah, they submit and they start to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's where the word worship comes in, right? So they submit, there's tadallu, they say, okay, there is a being who is above me, who is Allah Azza wa Jal, and I should submit to that being. And then I start the process of ubudiyah, which is the types of worship that we are asked to do by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what you are mukallif, the word I used before, you are morally obliged now to do that. In the beginning, it's very difficult for every person. No one should be that, pretend to be that pious as if in the beginning there's not some difficulty faced in doing these things. There is. In the beginning, the nafs doesn't like it, doesn't want it, and even will try to even fight. It fights the humility and certitude that they have to show in front of Allah. But after time, when you polish the nafs and you get it used to it, it can start to enjoy it. And this was actually the greatest status of the Prophet ﷺ, was being what? Abdullah. Because he did it as an it wasn't like something that he did, he was fighting himself. This was his joy. This was what he wanted in essence. You understand my point? So when he worshipped and he was asked why he strove so hard by his wife Aisha anha, and what did he say? We know this hadith, right? أَفَلَا أَكُنْ عَبْدًا شَكُورًا. Should I not be a grateful servant? In other words, it's, if you really look at the word kun from kaun, it's like saying, should not my very existence be what? My existence should be as a humble, grateful servant of Allah. And that is where and why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lifted him up to such heights, because there's a hadith where the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Man takabbara," whoever is proud, wadahu Allah, Allah will debase that person. Whereas the one who is tawada'a, the one who shows humility and puts them, literally wada'a means to put yourself down. Again, same concept. You're literally if you will, again, I know it's a negative connotation that's implied in that word, but to debase yourself, literally. When you do that, and you become, the more you do it, the more you even efface your own nafs in existence, the more rafa'u Allah, the more Allah will raise that person up. So the Prophet ﷺ, وَرَفَعْنَا لَكَ ذِكْرَكَ, that we will raise your name. Why is his name raised to the point that Iman is not even accepted unless a person says what? La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. It coincides. You can't leave one without the other, because the Prophet ﷺ was, in essence, that true servant of Allah. He had effaced himself to such an extent that he did not want even to be anything other than what? أَفَلَا أَكُنْ عَبْدًا شَكُورًا, a grateful servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All the rest of us are simply just trying to imitate that servitude, which is why when we ask for guidance, we ask for guidance of that path whom Allah had blessed, which primarily refers to, first and foremost, the Anbiya. Right? Because that is their status, and the greatest of them, the Prophet ﷺ, par excellence. Okay? That they are absolute, humble, and grateful servants, where the rest of us have to start off at the point where we think there's something about us that's special, which is natural. But there's even people out there, unfortunately, that have become so deluded that they don't even see that something special in themselves. They see it in another human being or another creation of Allah. You understand? So they become their servants. It's one thing to be self-serving. It makes some sense, right? If you're self-serving, you're just trying to get whatever benefits you. The worst kind of servitude is to serve another human being to where all you're interested in is doing things for them. You got my point? You become so belittled in front of others that your whole purpose now becomes just to serve people. Not for the sake of Allah, that's different. If you're serving people for the sake of Allah, that is the highest rank again. But just because they abuse you, use you, and they treat you as what? A slave. And so we say that ibadah, it's going to be either two ways. Going back to the original point, either you're the abd of Allah or you're abd of something or someone other than Allah. And if you look deep inside of ourselves, we'll find that every human being falls into one or the other category. Some way, somehow, someone is going to do something that is demeaning, belittling, or even a little bit of humility for the sake of something. Even as for themselves, their own nafs, their own desires, or even worse than that, because that's somewhat understandable, for the sake of somebody else's desires, right? Or for the sake of somebody else's, right? You understand, their shahawat. That's even worse. But either way, somehow or the other, you'll see that every human being is a servant of something. So that's why the Prophet ﷺ said in the hadith, "Ta'asa abdul dinar wa abdul dirham." Cursed be the slave of the dinar and the dirham. What would that mean in a modern context? Obviously, cursed is the one who is a slave of money. Right? That money becomes that object, which literally they will do what? Have you not seen people that would demean themselves and do anything for money? And what is the Prophet saying? That person is cursed. And if they will demean themselves to such an extent that money dictates everything, every decision they make, every move they make in life, it's all about money, as some people say. Right?
Could we also imply that the law or the that we're talking about, as if we are so zali in the sajda in front of Allah because we are disobeying all the order or command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so we are zali in front of Allah?
Because the essence of ibadah, in reality, as the Prophet said, ad-du'a mukhul ibadah, that the essence of ibadah is dua. And if you remember, the word salah originally means what? Dua. So the best form of showing that humility to Allah in reality is what? Salah. And if you look at Surah Fatiha, it is also called, like the hadith Qudsi I mentioned earlier, qasamtu salah. I divided salah into two parts, and then the whole of Surah Fatiha is mentioned. In other words, it's as if, like the hadith says, la salata, there's no salah for one who doesn't recite Fatiha. Not from a fiqh point of view, we're taking it to another. In other words, the essence of salah is missing if there's no Fatiha. It's as if Fatiha is the essence of salah and salah is the essence of Fatiha. And that in sum total is the essence of dua. And because what is dua? Dua is inkisari, right? When you ask somebody for something, is there anything more belittling? When you have to ask for something, is there anything more belittling? Right. So when you're asking, that's why the Prophet said, when you're requesting, you're doing two things. You're acknowledging my own inability, and you are acquiescing to the ability of the person that you're requesting or asking things from. Correct? That's why you do it. Give me this, give me that, I want this. Why? Because you're saying, I can't do it, and I need you to do it. إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. That is the very essence of humility. And that is, in its most perfect form, embellished in salah. And that's why sajda, as the Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in the hadith of Sahih Muslim, that this is that moment in which the servant, abd, same word used, is closest to Allah. And that final crowning moment of what? Utter humility. So it all relates in one way or the other to one, and it's like a link in a chain. It's all part of one big picture. Okay? And that's why Fatiha, basically, it just incorporates all of these meanings into one short surah. And so that ibadah then is perfected in salah. And that's why salah is perfected with the recitation of Fatiha. Does this make sense? So we go to another, just briefly, subject here, which is the idea that ubudiyah, or being a servant of Allah, and ibadah is related to the concept of Allah being Ar-Rabb, meaning the complete and absolute master, because that's actually linguistically, again, we said this before, that Ar-Rabb means Al-Malik, it means the king, the master, okay? Al-Musnih, who takes care of all the affairs of those whom they have control over. So because that's the meaning of Ar-Rabb, if you acknowledge, as I said before, that Allah is the Rabb, and that's why the word Al-Alameen is used, because anything other than Allah, and we broke it down into categories, right? Anything other than Allah that exists in the universe, right? Then they are, by definition, created, and by definition, they are in absolute need. That's why we talked about the nature of the universe, right? If we study it deeply, we will understand that the nature of everything in the universe is that nothing in the universe is independent in and of itself. Everything in the universe exists, right? And exists in contingencies. So therefore, all of it and every aspect of it must be dependent. And if it's dependent, then there is only one true master and sustainer of all of it. And that is what? Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Once a person can conceive that and understands the truth of that, automatically they will become the servant of Allah. Again, going back to the other points, because they will not see anything acting independent of its own. But it is the creation of Allah, and it cannot do anything by itself. So automatically that person will be driven to become the servant of who? Allah. Now, the reason why I'm saying that is because there is a relation between these two concepts. Understanding Allah as the only Rabb, and understanding that He alone should be worshipped. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, it's coming in Surah Al-Baqarah and other ayat as well, أُعْبُدُوا رَبَّكُمُ الَّذِي خَلَقَكُمْ. أُعْبُدُوا, from ibadah, worship, right? Whom? رَبَّكُمُ الَّذِي, your Rabb. You see the word that's used here in Arabic is what? Rabb. So worship and obey and, in other words, serve your Rabb, who is the one who created you. Understanding again that this means much more than just creating and then like leaving the universe to run on its own. That's what a lot of the quote-unquote founding fathers of the United States of America believed. They were deists, and they believed in that kind of concept that God created, but then the universe just ran on its own. Far from that. We say that everything in the universe, again, looking at its nature, all these terms we used last time, jawhar, arad, everything else that we categorize the universe as, in essence, everything in the universe has contingent being. Everything. Nothing really is running independently of itself. So therefore, the creator, it means more than just creating and leaving the universe alone. It means everything in the universe that occurred, does occur, and will occur is all created by one person, or not one person, excuse me, but one being, which is who? Right. Another statement of Allah Azza wa Jalla. خَالِقُ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ فَاعْبُدُوهُ. Look at you see how it's all, He is the creator of everything in existence. And even the statement, this is a nominal sentence, like in Arabic they call it jumlatul ismiya, which means it's a sentence that starts with a noun. But the reason why that's important, because unlike a verb, which may not have taken place, right? Or a command, which may not ever take place. If I tell you to sit and you don't sit, then it'll never happen, right? Okay? A nominal statement is a statement of what? Fact. You're just simply stating something as a fact. This is water. That's a nominal sentence, right? Now, it's up to you to decide whether I'm lying or not. Alhamdulillah, in this case, this is, as far as we know, what? Water. So then that was a statement of fact. You understand my point? So in the ayah, خَالِقُ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ, Allah, it's a nominal sentence. Allah is the creator of everything that exists. So this is like a statement of a reality. That everything that exists, and this is not relegated to time, space, and place. Again, everything that did exist, everything that does exist, everything that will exist. Who is the sole creator of all of it? Allah. So then what does Allah say after that? If you acquiesce to this statement of mine and you realize this to be true, fa'budu, then do what? Worship that being. Again, ibadah. You understand? Worship that being. Who is the creator of all things. And don't worship anyone else. Iyyaka na'budu. That's the entire essence of it. And that's why, if you put that all together too, the Prophet ﷺ said that the primary difference between shirk and a slave of Allah is what? Salah. Because when they are steadfast on their salah, this is that statement of ibadah that reconnects them every time they're told to, reconnects them with this idea. Allah is the sole creator and sustainer of all things that exist. He is the only one whom I will, even if it's inconvenient. Because again, this is the idea. If it was so easy, then it would be so easy for everybody. But it is at times what? Inconvenient. In the middle of work, in the middle of the day, in the middle of the things that we do, all of a sudden we're going to say, okay, no matter how inconvenient it may be, this is a sign that I acquiesce and I know Allah is the sole controller of everything. So I will then what? I will take the time out to do a specific type of ibadah, which is salah. That's why the Prophet ﷺ, that is the demarcation line, basically. So all of it is related. Do you understand how all of this, see, the Quran really is like even though there are different subjects and different parts of the Quran, but in reality it is one sum total of a message. That's why there is a golden rule that it's said that if you really want to do tafsir of the Quran, al-Quran yufassiru ba'dahu ba'da. Alright, that the Quran explains itself. In other words, certain parts of the Quran will explain other parts of the Quran, and you have to take it all together in one jigsaw puzzle-like thing and put it together like we've been doing thus far, and understand what is exactly the sum total message here of all of these things. And in reality, every ayah, whether we can understand it or not, that is the sum total of its message. All the things we've been discussing in Surah Fatiha. The rububiyyah, Allah's sole proprietorship, if you want to put it that way, of what? Everything that exists. And in that, He chooses certain people. That's the last part of the surah. And amta alayhim. Okay? So does it make sense so far? Yeah? So, okay. So that's, again, focusing on the Rabb issue, because the only reason I'm bringing this up, alhamdulillah, mashallah, I don't know if, hopefully you've been spared. In our community, not here particularly, but other parts of the community, there's been some controversies going on in certain places because, we're getting a lot of people coming. If I say this, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about, but like imams have applied in certain places, right? And it just can't decide on an imam. Part of the reason this is happening is because there's certain people in the community bringing up issues primarily about what? Aqidah. Key word. This is nothing new. This happens not just in Pittsburgh, it happens all across the Muslim world, unfortunately, I shouldn't even say in our day and age. This has happened too, ever since the time of Sahaba. This kind of fitan and problems have started. But a lot of these people, if you met some of these brothers and sisters, you may have heard a particular division of Tawheed as being a division of Tawheed in 3 parts, correct? Is anyone who hasn't heard that? If you haven't heard it, alhamdulillah. But have you heard that before? No? Really? Good, mashallah. No, I'm just joking. I shouldn't say good, but okay, so alhamdulillah, I'm very happy to know that you have been spared the interesting conversations that some people have with other Muslims. All right, but there are particular movements within the Muslim world that propagate that there is a taqseem, or there is a division of tawheed, of monotheism, when regarding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's names and attributes, which in and of itself is not problematic. Okay, that idea is not problematic. In fact, many ulama across the history of Islam have said the same thing. They may have differed in what those divisions are, but they have said that tawheed is broadly based on 3 divisions. Now, if you don't mind, I'll just write it up here on the board, okay? And explain it briefly. So the majority of ulama will say that tawheed is divided into 3 parts. The first one is called tawheed, right? Fi dhati. I'll explain all of this after I write it, okay? Then, same thing, tawheed fi sifati. And then the third category is tawheed. This is 1, 2, 3. Okay? Tawheed fi af'ali. Now, what does all that mean? I'll explain. All right. First of all, the word tawheed, that's the first thing. What does that mean? Tawheed literally means to make something one. That's the literal meaning of it. Ja'alu shay wahidan. To take something and make it one. In regards to Allah Azza wa Jal, this is what they're trying to explain. When we see tawheed, first thing to understand is, like Imam Abu Hanifa said so ingeniously in his book Al-Fiqh Al-Akbar, that when we say Allah is one, okay, we don't mean that He is one from the vantage point of a number. La min tariqi adad. This is his statement, that we don't say Allah is one in terms of a number, but rather we're using the word wahid, like you've heard the name Wahidul Zaman. You know what that means in Arabic? What does it mean? It means the most unique personality in their time. So it's like if you say this person, like, forgive me for using this example, but like Michael Jordan, right, is Wahidul Zaman in his time. What would that mean? It means that in his time, Michael Jordan was unparalleled as a player, right? So that's why they would say, be like Mike. Correct? Because in his time, he was what? Unparalleled. There was no one like him. So wahid doesn't mean a number. So what does it mean? It means to be absolutely and totally unique, having no parallel nor partner. Does it make sense? Because a number, obviously, you can add, divide, put things to it, right? You can divide, correct or not. So we're not saying Allah is wahid, one, as from, again, the vantage point, la min tariqi adad. He is not one from a vantage point of being a number, but He is absolutely unique, having no likeness, similitude, or any partner. Make sense? So take that, and when they say at-tawheed fi dhatihi, they're saying that Allah is absolutely unique and unparalleled in regards to His being. You know, like in Urdu too, zat, right? Okay? So in His being, there is none like nor a partner to Allah. Again, going back to Rabbil Alameen, everything other than Allah, the Jawhar, the Arab, the Jism, everything in the universe, when you look at it and break it down, even the Jawhar, if you were to break it down to what some people call the mathematical point, the mathematical point, can it accept certain dimensions? Can it be divided? What's the answer? Yes. So everything in creation is contingent, right? Whereas Allah, is He contingent on anything or anyone? No. So in His being, is anything like Allah? What's the answer? Categorically no. Fi sifati, meaning in Allah's attributes. Attributes, in essence, are just things that when you describe something, you describe them with attributes, right? So if I ask you about a person, if I ask you about an inanimate object, if I ask you about a car, a house, you're going to do what? You're going to describe it to me. That it's like this and like that. So are there descriptions in regards to Allah? Well, look at the whole Fatiha. Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin. All these are descriptions, correct? The most merciful. Is that a description? Absolutely. It's an adjective, right? Merciful. Is that an adjective? Yes. Okay, so does Allah have attributes? We say yes. That's also important because there were early Muslims too that when they started going off the deep end, they started saying, no. There was this man called Jahm ibn Safwan. He used to say that, you can't describe Allah as anything. In his viewpoint, and people actually started following him, he said that you can't describe Allah as what? Anything. So if I asked this person, who is Allah? They would just say, Allah is Allah. Well, who's that? Right? But He's just Allah. Okay. And? So no, we say that the Quran doesn't do that. The Prophet doesn't do that. And none of the Anbiya, none of the Prophets did that. They described Allah, right? He is merciful, Ar-Rahman, so forth and so on. But Allah is absolutely unique and unparalleled in all of His attributes. So if we describe Allah with mercy, remember we talked about this much earlier, is that mercy the same as it's described with creation? Riqqatun fil qalb, that you have a soft corner in your heart? No. The only thing that is similar is the name. That's it. The reality is what? Completely separate and different. Laysa kamithlihi shay. This is the golden rule that the Quran spells out for us. There is nothing like Allah. So is that attribute the same? We will say there's no relationship between the attributes of Allah and His creation except in name, and that's it. Except in name. The last part, that He is one in regards to what? His actions. Now that one is the one where Muslims have to really remind themselves. And it's funny because according to some shuyukh, this is the lowest tier. This is the beginning of Tawheed. When a person understands this, which is what? Going back to the whole discussion, everything in creation is contingent upon Allah. There is nothing that happens in the universe without Allah. Therefore, the only one that truly gives sustenance, يَبْسُطُ الرِّزْقَ لِمَن يَشَاءُ, Allah expands His sustenance for whomever He wills. The only one who truly gives sustenance, the only one who truly gives life and death, yuhyi wa yumeet, is who? Allah. And He is alone, meaning nobody and nothing is a partner with Him in His actions, what He does in the universe. Some ulama go so far to say actions are described in their opposites, meaning if there's something attributed to Allah that can be in opposites, yuhyi wa yumeet, giving life, giving death, there are two opposite things, right? Those are considered His af'al, what Allah does. Right? So in that too, Allah is absolutely unique. He has no partner, and He alone is the one who does all these things. To the point that even there's a hadith of the Prophet, there's many hadith, but one in the Imam at-Tirmidhi mentions in his Sunan, is that some of the Sahaba complained about the prices in the market, stock market. They complained that the prices of certain things went up. And he said, do not do that. Or actually, there's another, they tried to change the market price of certain items. And he said, la tusa'iru, which means what? Don't do that. Don't try. If that's the regular market price, keep it that way, because فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ مُسَعِّرٌ, Allah is actually the one who sets the market price. See, in reality, all the things that happen in the universe, including these things, the economy, and all of the whatever's going on in the stock market, whatever it may be, all of that truly in reality is controlled by whom? Allah. So even when we complain about gas prices and things like that, from the small things to the big things, we have to remember that in reality, the one who controls all of this is who? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So everything that happens, from the most minutest of details to the greatest of details of this universe, Allah is the sole controller of all of it. Okay, now that's one. There's another division where people will say, okay, Tawheed is three parts. They'll say there's Tawheed in terms of uluhiyya, which means divinity. Rububiyyah, that Allah is the Rabb, okay, the Lord, the Creator. And there is Tawheed of Asma wa Sifat, which means Allah's names and attributes. So you did hear this one before, right? Okay. That's all fine and good. No one's arguing about the validity of that. However, what some people will use this and then say, well, it's not enough to acquiesce and acknowledge Allah as your Rabb. And their argument would be that when some of the Arabs in the time of the Prophet ﷺ were asked that who, man khalaqa samawati wal ard, or any question like that who created the heavens and the earth, then these mushrikun, what would they respond with? Sayakunun Allah. They will say Allah, yet they were still mushrikun. So therefore, what their argument is, it's not enough to just say Allah is the creator. Okay, now just take that point for a second. That's because the person, first of all, that argument that all of the Arabs had this concept that there was Allah as the creator, and then there is these little gods or whatever else they had, aliha, who basically were kind of like appointed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to do certain tasks and affairs in the universe. Not all the Arabs believed that. Some Arabs actually did believe that these gods in and of themselves were the ones who controlled the rain, or the ones who controlled birth and death and so forth and so on. So not all the Arabs were all the same in terms of their shirk. Okay, and the Quran itself does explain that. So that argument is not necessarily true, that they all believed Allah was their creator. You understand my point? But they just associated partners with him. Not necessarily. Some of them may, like the Quraysh, as an example. Okay? But not all of them. All of them were pure polytheists. Okay? You get my point? That's number one. Number two is, if you understand what we imply by the word Rabb, what we imply by the word Khaliq, the creator, as we said, it's much more than just believing that there is God, He created, and the universe runs on its own. But it is understanding Khaliqu kulli shay'in fa'budu. Look at the ayat itself. Allah is the creator of everything in existence. And as I said, that means before, during, and after. Everything. Kulla shay, it doesn't leave any of that out. Therefore, worship Him. Meaning when we say Allah is the creator, what are we actually saying? Allah is the creator of literally everything. There is nothing that happens that is not created by Allah. So when you say that, then the natural conclusion of that is, who should I worship? Who should I humiliate myself in front of? Like, right? Tadhallu, it is only one being. Whom? Fa'budu, then worship Allah. So the Quran is saying in essence that it is enough. When you understand who's your Rabb and who is your Khaliq, if you understand that property, that is enough for you to do what? To make Him as your soul and only being that you worship and you serve. Another proof of that is in the famous ayah that most of us, you kind of alluded to it last time we talked about, right? Whether Tawheed or the belief in God is intuitive, right? What ayah is that? In Surah Al-A'raf. What is it? With أَخَذَ رَبُّكُمْ. This is the famous ayah that He took a pact from whom? From the children of Adam, min bani Adam, min dhurriyatihim. Right? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took a pact from the children of Adam alayhi salam. What was that pact? What did He say? Alastu bi rabbikum. Look at the word too, specifically. Hone in on the word. Am I not your Rabb? What was the word? Am I not your Rabb? And when all of humanity said, Qalu bala, without a doubt. Okay? Then what did Allah say in response? وَأَشْهَدُهُمْ, meaning He made them bear witness that yes, you're our only Rabb, so that you won't say, what? كُنَّا عَنْ هَذَا غَافِلِينَ, we had no idea about this. So if you're following me, it means that this was enough for human beings to acquiesce and understand that Allah is their Rabb, that now they have no excuse to do what? An hada ghafilin, to do anything that implies shirk or worshipping of anyone else or anyone other. So is it enough to say that Allah is my Rabb? Yeah. The first question in the grave will be what? Man Rabbuk? Who is your Rabb? If you know what Rabb means and you know what it implies, that's more than enough according to the Quran. That's enough. I know who's the Rabb of everything. So therefore I won't worship anything other than that Rabb. It's like, like the saying lazim and mawzoom. It's the natural conclusion when you say that Allah alone is Ar-Rabb, that you will only be the servant of that being. Because no other being is what? Your Rabb. Does it make sense? Alhamdulillah, may Allah accept. I tried to just simplify everything, inshallah ta'ala. So that's a broad division. This is actually very helpful too in the future. Anytime you have any questions or things that pop up in your mind, this will basically solve all of it if you just understand this very basic, broad division of what Tawheed is. Okay? That Allah is absolutely unique, unparalleled, and has no partner in regards to all these things, in His being, in His attributes, and in His actions. So what is the next part of the surah? Now that we've done, the first part, which is Allah's attributes, His oneness, His rububiyyah, now we're saying that tadallu, meaning to, I won't use debase, what shall we use? Humble ourselves, right? And serve only one being. Okay, and that is Allah Azza wa Jal. But then, this is kind of like the paradox of it all. In our effort to become a pure slave of Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tries all human beings in different ways. And the biggest trial for the nufus of the human beings is, number one, to acknowledge that they have a power above them. That was the first thing we discussed, right? And number two, when that power above them distributes His ni'mah, His what? Because the word an'amtu is related to the word ni'mah. He distributes His blessings and His bounties upon His servants as He wants. That means material things as well as what? Spiritual things. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not create all people, we hold these truths to be that all men are created equal. Halanke, they didn't mean that too. They didn't mean that every man is equal to an Anglo-Saxon Protestant, right? They didn't. That was not what they were trying to say, right? But the point is what? This statement is a strong statement, but we will say this. In terms of us all being the ibad of Allah, we are all the same. But we are given different bounties and different blessings. Okay? And this is explained in the Quran too. Simply put, to say sukhriya, this is one of the things Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, that we as humans have to live together. Human beings would never be social or live together in a community, even in a tribe, or let alone a civilization, unless what? We needed things from each other. Is that true? Why would you ever interact if you don't need something? Would you do that? I don't need anyone. Then you'd be Allah, right? I don't need anything or anyone. So why do we even bother? Even, that's why, even tyrants and people like Nimrod and Fir'aun, at the end, they still needed slaves to build their civilizations. They still needed people to come and serve them food and cook food, right? So were they absolutely independent? What's the answer? No. Everyone needs somebody for something. So because of that, Allah in His wisdom, He, He says that He divided the livelihood of every human being in the same way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala divides spiritual gifts as well. So we first have to tackle the issue of what? This idea of absolute equality. Okay? The answer to that is there such thing as absolute equality? Well, the harsh reality is what? No. People are different. Okay, so even the Prophet ﷺ was asked by a Bedouin that whom is best amongst all of humanity? Literally, khairun nas. Who is the best of all people? And then the Prophet gave a beautiful answer. As you know, the Prophet spoke simply, but he spoke with such deep meanings that in that one simple statement, there is just a whole slew of meanings that you can derive. So he said simply, but in a very deep way, an-nasu ma'adin, which even the Arabic itself, as simple as it is, again, another simple nominal sentence, right? An-nasu ma'adin. Human beings are minds. But if you understand like the art of rhetoric, that is the most profound way of saying it, because it's like saying that the reality of humans, they are minds. Now take that statement and wrap your mind around it for a second. First of all, there's so many things you can derive from that. Number one, minds do have things of value. Ma'adin literally are mines in which you go and you get minerals and whatever else you need. Anything from gold to diamonds to coal. All of that is what ma'adin. You see how the Prophet's talking? So number one, he's saying that every human being has value. But are they all the same? Because a mine of gold and a mine of silver, gold and silver don't have the same value, do they? No. And if you go get coal and diamonds, two different, do they have the same value? So he's saying, look at all of he's saying in one statement. Every human being has value. Lekin, they're not all the same. What they have and what they have of value is not all the same. They do have levels. And this is a test from Allah. So what does Allah do to us? To test us. Okay, you want to worship me. I'm the only being worthy of worship. You will worship me the way I want you to. And how do I want you to worship? I want you to worship the way this man worshipped. In this case, which is who? An'amta alayhi, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So it's even more humility. Again, as a human being, we want to feel, as some people do, that why do I have to... I'm sure you've heard, this is a very trendy thing now. Like people say, I'm spiritual. Right? So if they're asked, like, what are you? They're not going to say, I'm a Jew or a Christian or even a Hindu or a Buddhist or a Muslim. I'm just spiritual. I follow my own path. Correct? I just do whatever I think is right. Or, I just kind of, whatever comes to my mind, I don't need anyone to tell me what's right, what's wrong, or, what God wants from me. Yeah, another test of what? True humility, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is just saying, okay, worship me any way you want. Okay, you understand? He's being very specific and he's saying, ask for guidance. And what guidance? Ihdina siratal mustaqim. Very specific. As-siratal mustaqim. And what is that? Siratul ladina an'amta alayhim. It is the path of those whom you an'amta, ni'ma, meaning Allah blesses people in different ways. These people were blessed by Allah in a way that we weren't. And that takes a lot of humility. Because it means that you have to admit that this person was smarter than me. This person was more morally impeccable. They were morally impeccable. They were better than me even in their morals and manners. And matter of fact, this is an often unspoken, subject about the things that we even believe in regards to the Anbiya. All prophets, for instance, were not just blessed intellectually and morally, even from a physical vantage point, right? All the Anbiya, as the Prophet ﷺ described them, they were all given, for instance, they were all handsome and they all had good voices. So even in a physical way, the Anbiya, and Yusuf, as you know, alayhi salam, right? So even the opposite gender was tested in such a way with Yusuf that what happened? فَقَطَعْنَا أَيْدِيَهُنْ. They cut their hands almost off. Right? They were so enthralled by the beauty of this man that they almost did what? They almost cut their own hands off. You know what Aisha anha said about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? She said if the women of Yusuf alayhi salam saw Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they would have cut their hearts out, not their hands. Right? They wouldn't have been able to bear. And even as men, it doesn't even matter male or female, the Prophet ﷺ, if you know about his gatherings, most of the Sahaba wouldn't look at him directly, except for two people, Abu Bakr and Umar. And some people go so far to say too, is the reason why Abu Bakr, because he could actually see, if you want to put it in a very metaphysical way, he could see things other people couldn't see in the Prophet ﷺ. So he just was enthralled. He couldn't get enough. Understand? He just had to watch. He just had to look in wonder, like wow. That's why Aisha radiallahu anha, again, when she was asked about, tell me something special about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In regards to the hadith we mentioned earlier, when he said, I should not be a grateful servant of Allah, أَفَلَا نَكُنْ عَبْدًا شَكُورًا, her response first, before she even described this ibadah and certitude of the Prophet ﷺ, was like, what should I tell you? There wasn't a day that went past except that we were more impressed than the day before. What's she saying? Like, how can I tell you about something special when every day there was something that happened that made us say, just when we thought we couldn't be more impressed, something happened and we said, wow. Okay, I thought I knew everything about this man, but now today something new happened and made me go, wow. Right? Just full of surprises, good surprises. So she said, okay, I really don't know what to tell you, because every day that we were with him, we would see something in him that impressed us even more. And I'jab literally impressed us. Like, subhanAllah. So the idea is that what? Anbiya, whether we like to admit it or not, okay, they are given a status above us. And the humility for the human being is then to do what? Allah says, I'm the being you worship, but I'm going to test you. You're not going to worship me the way you think. You're going to worship me the way I want you to. And how am I going to do it? Just to test you even further, is you are going to worship the way this man does. Let's see how humble you are now. Some people failed that test. Is that true or not? Abu Jahl, did he pass that test? He said, no way. Not Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And they would complain, why not anyone else? Why not one of us? Right? Even the traditions that came before us. وَدُّ الْكَثِيرٌ مِّنْ أَهْلِ الْكِتَابِ لَوْ يُرُدُّونَكُمْ من بعد إيمانكم حسدا كفارا حسدا من عند أنفسهم. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in this ayah that there are many from amongst the people of the book, meaning the traditions that came before you, that would love nothing more than to turn you away from your iman. But why? Because of the jealousy that they have in their own souls. So what was their test? We're the chosen people. There's no way that this man and these people are going to be the people that we have to follow. You understand my point? We're better, right? Is that not a test for others? Of course. What's a bigger test for us than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless someone with something that we think we deserve? That's what the essence of jealousy. Wait a second. Even in material things. Right? I once had a brother who, in Chicago, and some Muslims, obviously, we get way too paranoid about ayn, the evil eye, but nazar, right? Which is true. It does exist. There is a spiritual reality to that. But you have to understand as a golden rule, until you've exhausted all other possibilities, then only should you start blaming it on, the evil eye. So, in other words, go to the doctor first, get diagnosed. If the doctors test you over and over again, so we have no idea what's going on, then you might want to consider that, okay, this is something else. You got my point? Like, it's not like the first thing you go to, like, that's it. So-and-so was jealous and gave me, the evil eye, the ayn, gave me nazar. So this guy called me because he had this feeling, because in this case, he might have had a point, because he had lost a job and he had just been applying and really making an effort to find employment for so long, and he was quite well-to-do, and just nothing. No matter how many times he sent out his applications, how many times he sent out his resume, no matter where he went, who he went to, just wasn't happening, right? So he began to wonder, maybe something's going on. So I had to inquire, and I said, okay, said, well, my older brother, I'm a lot more financially successful than him. And his wife really doesn't like that. You got it? So I said, yeah, okay. Here's the point. Unfortunately, even though he's your close relative, when you call him and talk to him, you should not mention like how much money you have in the bank account, or you understand my point? Like keep that all to yourself, because it is very possible that that's what's going on. Why? Because obviously in most cultures, the older brother assumes that what? I should always have some rank over all of my younger siblings, even when it comes to making money. So it would just drive them nuts, right? If they saw their younger sibling doing what? Yeah, like, oh, no, that can't happen. I'm the one, izzat kibad, right? Like, I'm the one. This is what happens to every human being. So Allah tests us by saying, no, it's not about what you think you are. It's not about who you want. It's about whom I want. ذَلِكَ فَضْلُ اللَّهِ يُؤْتِيهِ مَن يَشَاءُ. This is the fadl of Allah. He gives it to everyone. So if I say that this man in this place amongst these people is the one that I'm going to make my messenger to you and that you have to follow him, all of you are being tested. All of you. Either you accept it or you become like these other people, which is what? Never. No way. Not the children of Ismail alayhi salam. You understand? We're the chosen people. And that is also related. Who's the first person who did that, by the way? This all goes back to the, not person, but who's the first? Iblis. No way. And the khayrun min. There's no way. There's no way that you can do this to me. Right? I'm better than him. Point blank period. How dare. It's even almost like Iblis is telling Allah, like, how dare you have the audacity to do it for him and not me after all that I've done? Instead of saying what? Well, whatever I have, whatever blessing, it's a ni'mah, it is your in'am. In order to use the same word, what is it? It's your in'am. It's not because of me. It's not because I'm essentially better, khayrun min. It's because of your in'am. So if you decide that you're going to bless this human being in a way that I'm not, okay. The malaika even, they had to say what? Okay. فَسَجَدَ الْمَلَائِكَةِ. So they said, okay, we don't understand it, but it's okay. We don't need to understand it. We don't need to understand. That's the difference. The malaika, they just do what? Yeah. وَيَفْعَلُونَ مَا يُؤْمَرُونَ. We don't need to understand, but we'll submit. So that is the ultimate test here that comes in the last part of the surah, that, okay, you acknowledge Allah's existence and His oneness, wahdaniyah, His complete uniqueness, and that He is the only being worthy of worship. So now Allah will test your sincerity and say, okay, you worship me the way I want you to. And that way is through the way of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But just to make it special for us, yes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala embellishes the Anbiya with all of these perfect qualities, so that in essence, in the day of Qiyamah, when people come in front of Allah, they have no excuse left. Why didn't you listen to this person? You know, I know that, well, I'll leave at this point. Some people may think, like, well, why did you say that the Anbiya alayhi salatu wasalam were handsome and had good voices and so forth and so on? Isn't that so, like, almost what? What's the point? Can't you just have a good personality? Well, that's wonderful. But I think you know by statistics that in reality, good-looking people in general, whether male or female, they get things done before people who are less. That's just a fact, a statistic. People just it's ingrained in human beings. Sorry to say it. They're going to be more willing to listen to and follow or even just do things for someone who is better looking than a person who's not. Does that mean with Allah, people who are not blessed with good looks are nothing? No, that's not the point. Prophets are sent to all of mankind, correct? Right, so they have to deliver the message to everybody. So this is what I'm trying to say. Why are they blessed in such a way? So that no human being will have an excuse like, I wanted to listen, but that person was just so hard to look at, right, that I couldn't do it. You know why when, what's his name? Nixon ran for president. First he ran against Kennedy. And they had a debate. And Kennedy won hands down. You know one of the reasons that he won? Because Nixon refused to wear makeup, and all right, so the sweat was, and then, you know, Kennedy's young, handsome, so everyone just immediately what? Gravitated toward Kennedy. It added to whatever he was saying. Even maybe Nixon, I don't think so, but maybe Nixon could have even made better points. But at the end of the day, everyone was associating the victory to the one who was, mashallah, wearing makeup. Because they put makeup on before you make television appearances, right? They don't want any, look at what they do. Because they know the mentality of people. They don't want any blemishes there. So you look perfect when you appear, right? And you just, oh, wow, look at this guy. Or even a woman for that matter. Look at these guys and these girls, right? There's nothing wrong there. It's all makeup, all right? It's all an appearance, but they know that because people take that appearance and they add that to whatever it is that they're hearing. It's a full package, right? And that's how people are. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creates the Anbiya in such a way that they are a full package, not just part. Right? For the rest of us, we have, hey, here and there, this thing or the other thing. That's why you should read sometimes the descriptions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You'll find that, this will be the last point. You'll find that how you may say to yourself, well, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, correct? That's what people will say. And it's true for the most part. What some people in some cultures consider beautiful, it doesn't always hold the same for other cultures. However, there is a psychological, deep down in every culture and every human being, there is something psychological that happens when you see things that are in perfect proportion. And it's not just people. Like if you can look at a building, for instance, or anything, and if it has perfect proportions, subconsciously you will do what? Wow, that's beautiful. Understand? That's subhanAllah, right? That looks so good. Whether you understand it, I think, no offense, I'm not trying to be sexist here, but I think ladies are a little bit more in tune with that than men, right? We're not so much into that, right? We're not always able, unless that's you have an artistic tabi'ah, right? Then you can understand these kind of things, perfect proportions and how. But most of the time, like when a lady comes in a room, she'll notice all that stuff, right? Most of the time. When a guy comes in a room, whatever. I don't even, dilapidated, whatever it is, this thing. And there are some, of course, there's always exceptions to the rule. There were some shuyukh like that they were so in tune. There was, in some content, there was a Shaykh Hafiz Zaman, rahimahullah ta'ala. It said that if he just glanced at a building that had some type of, the architecture was off just a little bit, he would develop a headache. Because he was so in tune to he just couldn't do it. I can't even look at it for a second because it's just off right there, that color or that piece, right? So subconsciously everyone has that we can see things. So if you read the descriptions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what will you see? Perfect proportion. Not too light, not too dark. Right? Just in between. Not too tall, not short. Above average. Not too wavy hair, not too straight hair. What? Just everything was just like perfect proportion. So no matter what your standard of beauty is, when you look at something like that, you'll say, "What? Oh, mashallah." Right? That's it right there. It's everything is just put where it should be. So this is what we mean when we say the beauty of the Anbiya. It's not like what we should characterize it as, like our own, you understand, cultural or anything else, individual, but it's a general universal beauty of perfect proportions. And if you look at his character too, you will see the same thing, which is very important. Don't paint the Prophet ﷺ in your own picture. You got it? Understand the Prophet as he is, because if you look at him as he is, you'll see everything externally and internally was perfectly proportioned. He wasn't too much of this thing or the other. And that's where true beauty lies, when we're able to get that kind of mashallah. That's why sometimes some of these shuyukh, I know this is controversial, but some of these shuyukh in the past, they used to study music as well. Don't get me wrong, I'm not getting into the whole halal haram issue of music, but because just the idea that understand, like even Qari Abdul Basit, rahimahullah ta'ala, when he recited Quran, he used what's called maqamat in Arabic. You know what maqamat is in Arabic? It's like the musical scales, like in the Western, do, re, mi, fa, so, and all that. These were the musical scales of the Arab world. He actually used that when he recited. He learned that. So he knows how to put his voice in certain tones, and you understand? So why would they study that? It's not the point of music, playing music. Obviously they didn't go out and play concerts, right? But the ability to be able to discern what goes where. Okay, to appreciate, again, just like architecture or anything else, okay, this, it goes in the right place. It has the right tone. It has the right sound. It has the right look. And when you can appreciate that, the more you appreciate that, the more you can appreciate how the Prophet ﷺ imbibed all of that perfection in a human being. Of course, the most perfect being, again, is only the Rabb. Because even that perfection of the Prophet was all contingent on who? Allah. Okay, so we can stop here and do questions, inshallah. Jazakumullahu khairan kathira.
So the angels did, though, ask Allah when He created Adam alayhi salam that you're creating this being who's going to create havoc on earth.
Yes.
So was that a question, or was that just something that they were trying to understand? Because it seems like they did have this dialogue where they were kind of questioning Allah's
Sure.
actions.
Sure. It's a question of clarification. Meaning, like the Prophet ﷺ said that nisbah ilm husn su'al. Half of knowledge is to ask good questions, right? So in their case, it wasn't questioning in terms of like i'tiraz. Like Iblis, that's what he did. No way. Malaika were not saying no way. They were just saying, okay, we just want to understand what's going on. Because initially, when we see this person, we're thinking, okay, yeah, this, okay. I mean, it's interesting to note, and Allah knows best. Some scholars have said because of they like you mentioned, they said that they will shed blood. They will shed blood, which is a very, very particular like thing to say. They didn't just say this, that they said they will shed blood, meaning they will kill. You're not going to be a friendly creature, right? This man that you're creating is not a friendly thing, okay? Some, I mean, Allah only knows best. I mean, this is kind of an incorporation of some of our knowledge of the world around us that we've acquired in recent times. But okay, what's the difference between a predator and an herbivore? Like a goat and a cow. Their eyes are on the side, right? And when the eyes are in the front, what's that an indication of? A predator. So they looked at the physical creation of man and they made these kind of conclusions. Well, eyes in the front, hey, he's going to eat meat. So he's obviously going to, what? Shed blood. Right? And further, they just kept on deducing like that. Just by looking at the very simple form of Adam, they deduced all these things like, yeah, okay, we'll do what you told us, but it looks like this guy is not going to be friendly. Right? It doesn't look like he's going to be the nice little herbivore, right, that just eats plants. He's going to kill. He's going to shed blood. So then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, just do what I told you, and I'll explain to you later. Right? That was the hitch there. Do what I told you, and I will explain to you. Because that's the thing. If it was i'tiraz like Iblis, they would have just been rejected. It wasn't that. It was just a clarification. Because Allah did what? He did show them why. When He told Adam alayhi salam, وَعَلَمَ آدَمَ الْأَسْمَاءَ كُلَّهَا, when He told in the names of everything, and then He repeated those names to the malaika, then the malaika understood and said, okay, subhanak, right? Okay, now we get it. So it's not really like it wasn't an objection. It was just clarification. So, yeah, it's okay to. That's why, based on that, it's okay as long as if you follow the order of Allah, and you don't object, but you want clarification. That's the difference. Then your questions are okay. You understand my point? If you're questioning as an objection, then it's not okay. So, like if you tell your kids to do something and they really don't understand the issue, but they need to get it done, the first thing you tell them is what? If they say no, if they're asking a question just as an objection, you're going to get mad and punish them, right? So you just do what you're told, right? But if they say, well, I just want to understand, then what will you do? Right. Okay, do it, and then I'll tell you later, right? That this is why I want you to do this, or I want you to do that. Even sometimes after time, when they're ready to understand. See, when I told you to do your homework, that's why. Because a few months later, we see your report card, and that's what the point is, right? Makes sense? I mean, it's just,
yes.
So that's what it is. Objection is one thing, clarification is another. So as long as we're humble and we want clarification, then those are not the same as objections and saying, that's ridiculous, right? Why would you ever tell me to do that?
So was Iblis angel, or because Malaika are not supposed to disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala?
Right. No, he definitely was a jinn.
Jinn.
And yes.
So in Surah al-Mustaqim, you said is how we should worship. Would it also be broader in terms of our general behavior or how we lead our life? The Surah al-Mustaqim is straight path, or?
Right. So inshallah we will cover some of that next time. Because even the idea of ibadah, although salah is like the crux of ibadah, But the true idea of ibadah is to lead our lives in a way that every facet and aspect of our life is a part and parcel of our obedience and servitude to Allah. And for that you need, again, it's a very broad. That even covers, like, so many people find it, I don't know why, I think this just has to do with like modern ideologies like socialism and communism. Like, some Muslims find it so hard to understand why there were differences of opinion amongst the jurists of Islam. Well, you have a universal religion for all people. And as much as we like to think, that's why I think it's from communism, so you could just force everyone to do one thing. But that's not possible. And that's why the Prophet himself, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, would even do things differently and tell people in certain circumstances to do things differently. He wouldn't just paint this one broad brush like everyone has to do this. Even in the recitation of the Quran, there were 7 modes of recitation that the Prophet ﷺ taught and approved of for each tribe in their own lahja, in their own, if you will, like colloquial. Because that's what the whole point is. He's setting the standard to make it easy, that this is a universal religion, so it cannot be this one whole just like monoculture. A lot of Muslims think like that. Am I right or am I wrong? Like, it just has to be this one, so everyone who becomes Muslim then has to become Arab? Is that the case? Over thousands of years, the Muslims never did that anyhow. Our ibadah in certain things, meaning what? The 5 pillars, right? We all say the same shahada, we all make salah, we all fast, we all go for hajj. These are the basics, right? But in very particular things, and this is important because what you said, like in everyday life, the Prophet ﷺ gave us a chance to be what we are and still be following the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ and worshipping Allah as He will, as Allah wants us to. And you need that because people are different. So it's not like everyone in the Indian subcontinent became Arab. Is that what happened? Let's just like adopt everything Arab. And the people in Uzbekistan didn't do that. The people in North Africa had their own style. The people in Malaysia had their own style, and that's all fine. Right? There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, you need that because people have to be able to, some room. And that's why the word itself, as-sirat, is a path that is wide enough to accommodate everybody. And so the Prophet did teach people in such a way that, okay, we can accommodate everybody in all of their different capacities.
But maybe that's different from the colloquial example that you gave, but in Quran, like, you have the tajweed, which is basically a standard way of recitation that is encouraged. So
yes.
So then is that an exception to it, or is it how's
Not really, because tajweed primarily deals with the pronunciation of the letters specifically. Okay, and the recitation modes have to do with more of, just to give an example, like sa'ala, sin, hamza, lam. You can in Arabic say sa'ala instead of sa'ala. So it's not about the pronunciation of alif, it's just that you can do that, and it's the same thing. Okay? Sometimes it may, like that, like, to be honest, like, that's for us, but if there's a qadi, like a true qadi, then they have to learn those 7 modes of recitation also, because they have to understand when the hamza is light and when it's not. Sometimes the hamza is heavy, like in what we recite is hafs, that's the majority. Like, it's a very abrupt sound. It actually stops airflow. That's what's, so when you say you don't say a'udhu, you say a'udhu, like that, right? Other recitations, it is a little lighter, like It's not as hard, right? So it does, but for us, no. And most of us do hafs anyhow, so we just stick to that and don't. But tajweed is, if you're going to learn to be a qadi, then you have to learn that. If not, you don't have to worry about that.
Some people relate this Surah Mustaqim as a hadith where Prophet drew a line and
Yes.
said Surah Mustaqim is
Yes.
Bani Israel 72:6.
Right.
So like it's making it thinner than not wide.
Yes, good question. In one aspect, it's one path in terms of our i'tiqad. Okay? Understand? In terms of what we believe in and what we accept regarding Allah, regarding the prophets, regarding the life hereafter, it's one thing. And that too we share in common, by the way, with all the other previous traditions. People changed that. That's why he said, like the Yahud and the Nasara, but the essence of it was always what? Always the same. So that's one thing. In practice, though, in other words, even the other, by the way, short point, did the Bani Israel, did they perform salah? Yes. Did they fast? Yes. Did they pay zakah? Yes. They even had hajj, not in the form that we do it, but the concept of going to a holy place for the sake of a pilgrimage, and so that's all there. But we have slight differences in what? How we do it. That's the answer to that question. So the i'tiqad is one path, and that's what he meant. Because when he says the Yahud and Nasara split off, are they talking about in practice? No. They're saying what? In i'tiqad, they started saying this thing and that thing, and then some of them went so far to say that what? Uzair ibn Allah, Uzair is the son of Allah, and other people said Isa is the son of Allah, and then Thalatha and the Trinity. All of that is a deviation. So what he's saying is what I'm teaching you is only one thing. But in practice, this is where we allow what? The differences to be existent. And does it make sense? All right, so like in i'tiqad, it's one thing, but in practice, it's something different. And again, that's why Allah changes the Sharia between each people, because of the demand of people changing, society changing, and so forth and so on. Jazakumullah khairah. Inshallah, we'll get into that other.
Habibi